came out here
Yeah.
to people came out here to look for a couple of women who they thought were missing. And for one reason or another, probably because they didn't really feel like they could, law enforcement didn't communicate to them probably that we're not looking for this women because we know that they're deceased.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm going to tell you, and this is one of those things that I've never said, and I don't know whether I should or not, but I'm going to. Derek was coming home from Guyman, and he shot a lot of the first video of what was going on out there, and he didn't know what was going on. But Derek, being Derek, he started to check out what was going on, and people tell him things. And so pretty quickly, he knew what was going on. And so, kind of the same way with me, people tell me things, and people send me stuff. And so I knew by that afternoon that as far as law enforcement was concerned, that these women were deceased. And that's why there was no search for them. I believe law enforcement also had a pretty good idea where their bodies were at the end of the first day. And I had seen crime scene photos that I probably shouldn't have seen. And even though I've heard some people describe small puddles of blood, the puddles of blood that I saw in the crime scene photos were, in my opinion, and I've had some experience with this, were not survivable amounts of blood loss. I mean, I saw blood pooled on the surface of the road and then running down into the ditch and secondary pools in the ditch. And that's a lot of people don't realize this, but your body doesn't contain as much blood as you think it does. And any blood loss over about 3 pints is likely not or can be fatal. And by the time you get to 4 or 5 points, it's almost certainly fatal. Okay. And so, like I said, one of the reasons why there wasn't a search going on, and I know it was frustrating for a lot of people and they didn't understand it. And so God bless those people who came out here to look. But I think one of the reasons why there wasn't a search going on was because, and it hasn't been stated by law enforcement, but law enforcement pretty much knew that these two women were deceased, and they had a pretty good idea of who did it. I mean, I had people tell me by that evening who they thought had done it, and as it turns out, they were
Just move over. There
right.
they are.
Exactly. And so it, and let's face it, it didn't take long to put two and two together. Once you knew who the victims were, all of those court documents of the custody battle were out there. All right. Everybody knew these people knew that there had been a custody battle. You think Veronica and Jillian's families that came out here looking for them, that's who found that car. You think they didn't know who to point the finger at almost immediately? Of course they did. And that's what makes this so sad and so devastating in so many ways. Okay. Their families came out here looking for them because they didn't show back up. And their families found that vehicle. And their families found those pools of blood. And they're the ones that called the police. And that's what happened. And they knew who to point the fingers at. Okay. And that's one of the things that I think gets lost in this is, we look at it, and I try to do it because I think it's the best way to do it. We try to look at it in an impersonal and just the facts kind of way. But the truth is, this was a devastating thing. It was a devastating thing for those families who had to come out here and find the car and very likely find the murder sites of their loved ones, and who had to call the police themselves, and who knew in all likelihood who had done it. And so that's that to me is the worst aspect of this whole thing. And I've never talked about it before, and it's one of those things I've tried to avoid talking about, but there it is.
Well, to me, I think it's so. To me, the reason same for that first day. Yeah, you and me kind of we knew a lot of the same stuff. So why didn't you say anything on day one? Because we knew we didn't know all of them, but we had an idea that it was this group. Two of the people on the screen were definitely mentioned on day one.
Right.
I had seen crime scene photos. I processed, why, and the only thing I did was at the behest of somebody who claimed to be involved in law enforcement, got a hold of a friend, and they sent me, said, hey, they asked you, do not show these, but describe them. And so I went and described them on Facebook and asked for prayers. I think somebody gave me shit within like 10 minutes, and I took it all down.
Yeah.
Like, I took it all. Like, why didn't you? Why? And is that even integrity? Is it, or is it more?
Well,
decency?
I've never talked about it before now because my input was not required. It's not a necessary part of this, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter that I knew that stuff, and so I never talked about it because my impression of things is not what's important. Facts are what's important. And so, that's why I've never talked about it, I guess. That, and I always figure that if people tell me stuff and send me stuff that, I have a little bit of an obligation to kind of keep that confidential too. So,
yeah. I'll never reveal my sources unless it's like, restaurant related,
Yeah.
No, I believe that since week 1, family member found the car. Let me see. I think there was another comment I wanted to get. Okay, here we go. It says, I remember the early 80s, the American Ag movement hit Southeast Colorado, had family involved in it. They were actually tear gassed by the sheriff's department. It was a big deal to see.
There was a little mini riot there. Well, I say mini. It was a riot for Springfield, Colorado. I believe it was a farm auction, but the people, they kind of broke into the courthouse and I think kind of took over the courthouse, and they tear gassed them, and yeah. And Springfield, Colorado was one of those hotbeds of the American ag movement.